Now, basically there are two effects within our being of not forgiving. One of them is grudge, when we are not forgiving other people, and the other one is guilt, when we are not forgiving ourselves. And as much as I've been making a pledge for forgiveness here, we are not holding grudge and holding guilt inside of our beings because we are stupid and we have nothing else to do, but because we are wishing for a good result by behaving in this way. We wish for a certain outcome by holding grudge and holding guilt. And of course the question is, so what is this about? Why are we doing this? What is the benefit, so-called benefit, of holding grudge and holding guilt? Now, when we are holding grudge against another person, the main driving force of that is some sort of wish to be compensated. That doesn't mean that they come over and pay you money so that you stop hating them. But there is a wish to either get some sort of favor. Okay, if I stay upset with you and have a pouty lip, maybe I get it my way. Maybe you'll understand what I've been talking about. If I'm now getting a bit aggressive with you, maybe you will tell me I'm right. Maybe you will, allow for something that you didn't allow before. Or you will transform. If I'm now holding this grudge inside, hopefully the other one will change. So the whole process of holding a grudge, we do it in order to get something from the other one. Very often people would experientially say, no, wait a second, that's not true. I don't want to have anything to do with this person. Yeah, as long as they don't, XYZ, you don't want to have anything to do with this person. That's what grudge says. That's what blame says as well. You did so and so, this is not okay, therefore I deserve XYZ. This is the, let's say, underlying story behind grudge. And the Buddha put it so beautifully that when we grudge, it's like we eat poison and hope that the other one will die. And it's exactly what we do. We pay a certain price for holding that grudge in hope of the compensation that it might bring. So we pay the price of having, let's say, maybe a lesser positive mood. We pay the price of having the resonance of grudge, having the resonance of being closed up, of being separative towards another human being. We pay the price of having a tension within that relationship, to make a point, maybe, to whatever the reason might be. So grudge always costs something. It's like you sign up to some sort of subscription, and then you get your weekly hope for change, and you pay with the tensions and the discomforts and the negative resonances that grudge brings. And that's sort of the deal that you make there. Something similar happens with when we don't forgive ourselves, which is that we implement guilt. So mostly guilt is implemented for a very similar reason, which is, again, we wish very much that by holding that guilt, our being will pay us back with transformation, with not repeating a mistake, with making a change inside. So Uriel puts it so nicely. It's a bit like you made a mistake. Let's say you forgot your smartphone in your pants and you washed your pants with the smartphone inside. So now you destroyed your smartphone. And then instead of marking that inside of your consciousness and understanding, I have to remember to take out the smartphone from my pocket, let me make a little sticker on my washing machine, or let me increase my concentration practice so I can hold more attention. Instead, I have a way better idea. Let me go and smash the television, because that will show me. Every time I will see that television, it will hurt, and then I will be like, I should really not watch my smartphone. And this is sort of what we do to ourselves when we implement guilt. We say, okay, I made a certain mistake. And now let me punish myself inside by pointing that out, by being critical towards myself, by feeling tense, by feeling that I should excuse for every breath that I take. Let me implement the guilt that will create a certain pressure, a certain pain, so that I will not repeat that mistake. And obviously, often enough, these processes have been learned, at least for the bigger part, again, in the early ages of our lives, where we felt, okay, let me internalize this guilt because I'm getting a bad vibe from my environment. I need my environment. So let me push that button of guilt a little more so I will behave better. So I will stop making all these mistakes that seems to be making everybody around me not love me or reject me or whatever your experience might have been. So the stories of the past, the mistakes of the past, or even just the perceived mistakes of the past, which maybe had nothing to do with you, but you sort of internalized it as probably I did something wrong. They will then result into this holding of guilt in the hope that we are going to transform. So, as I said, these processes are mostly subconscious. And the first step in coming to a place where forgiveness can very naturally flow from your heart and very naturally embrace both your own being and other people and bring about a natural compassion for yourself and others, the first step will be, as always in Tantra, putting awareness on the problem. Putting awareness onto this mechanism of tensing ourselves up, holding negativity inside in order to obtain a certain result. The tantric would then go immediately to the result. Okay, wait a second. You are holding this grudge to obtain a certain transformation. You're holding this guilt in order to obtain a certain transformation. Let's consider and contemplate from the heart what could bring about this transformation so that then we can stop pushing that button of guilt. We can stop holding that grudge. Because that grudge is just a marker, a little alarm bell alerting you, notifying you, excuse me, boundary was overstepped, excuse me, transformation is wished for. That's all that grudge does. And same with guilt. Excuse me, don't want to repeat this mistake. Thank you very much. What mistake are we talking about? Oh, I did wash my cell phone. That wasn't smart. Okay, let me see what I can do about it. Let me put in some extra lotus posture and some extra meditation to get my attention ramped up a little bit. Let me put a sticker on my washing machine. This person overstepped my boundary in that moment. All right, I still have boundaries. I'm not enlightened yet. Let me communicate this. All right, look, I know it's not your thing, but it would really help me in situation XYZ if you could acknowledge that I have this boundary and if we maybe can take care of it together and then see what the person says about it. You might need to sometimes voice, okay, look, this thing, it was difficult for me, it was disturbing for me. Maybe sometimes you need to go for a session with a friend, with a mediator, with a therapist in order to clear out what is in between you. But the goal is always the same, which is to become aware of the mechanism, to become aware of the wish for transformation, and then to request that transformation kindly, either from someone else or from yourself. Now, the first thing that will happen from this, and this may be the reason why forgiveness makes us feel so light and energized, is that the entire energetic effort that you're making to hold that grudge and to hold that guilt, which is actually an effort that you're continuously making, will be freed up. All of a sudden you can use that energy. You might know this feeling, something happened to you, somebody said something, they looked at you the wrong way, you interpreted it as something, some person was rude to you, some bus driver was not treating you according to what you would expect when you pay for a ticket, etc., etc. What usually happens is that you will have thoughts about it for at least a good amount of time afterwards. Thoughts that tell you, oh, I should have said so and so. But was it really fair? Maybe it wasn't fair. No, it wasn't really fair. I don't want to be treated. If I was in that position, blah, 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 blah. All of these thoughts take energy. That story to be maintained inside of you, it's not running on its own. It is maintained by your vital force. One of the major reasons why people don't become vital, they don't hold energy within their system, is because it is flowing out into their thought processes. And definitely the inner voice of grudge, the inner voice of guilt, the inner critical voice in general, they eat a lot of our vital potential. So try to observe this benefit, because when you understand that one of the big results of being forgiving, of looking at the things where you still hold grudge or you hold guilt, and then letting them go, going through them, grieving through them if needed, it will immediately give you a big amount of energy. When you become aware of that, you cross-reference that inside of your inner world, you will understand, oh, this is a direct benefit of forgiveness, a direct benefit of letting go of these sort of stories. So your inner world is more inclined to help you to do this in the future, even though we all know it's not necessarily so easy, it's not necessarily so pleasant to go through these grudges and guilts that we hold from the past. Now, to give a few practical pointers. One interesting observation maybe from also my therapy practice, but also my own also spiritual practice of forgiving myself, is to allow that story that might be tied in with your guilt, with your grudge, to be simply held within your awareness, without a huge complication, without now indulging into how this person did that and that person did that and this is how it went and so forth. But to just simply, even just write it down once, understanding, all right, so I feel guilty for so and so and so and so that I did, or for so and so and so and so traits that I might have and that, I'm not so fond of. I am holding grudge for so-and-so particular situation with person XYZ. I'm holding grudge for... Within this process of just holding it within your awareness, not doing anything with it, not indulging into it, but just allowing yourself to see it. This is an amazing tool, let's say, of getting to know yourself more. Understand how the mechanisms within your being work. All of a sudden you notice, it is always in a very similar set of situations that I tend to resort to grudge or resort to guilt. Typically when so-and-so happens, that's my go-to. So now you might be able to catch the mechanism of creating guilt, creating grudge before it even happens, simply by holding within your awareness your own patterns, your own ways of being. And by holding it within your awareness, what happens is you disidentify from being part of the story. But instead, you identify as the one looking upon the story, as the one becoming aware of the story, as the one witnessing what is going on, the observer, as we call it in the tantric practice. In this way, you can gradually become aware of the whole mechanism of grudge and guilt holding within your own being. And when that happens, you gain a choice. At first, it might be that you step into a situation, you're like, oh, very likely to be a guilt trip following this one, very likely to be a grudge trip following this one. I couldn't really hold it together. The mechanism still happened. All right, let's be aware of that. Next time, you might be able to already identify the whole process happening, not just being sort of a victim of it unfolding inside of you, but noticing, oh, okay, now maybe I could intervene. It's half an hour after the fact, but I could still say sorry now and still express my forgiveness for the other one now. This would be an option. And eventually you come closer and closer to the fact until you sit in the situation, you're about to say something that you know will spin off into one direction or the other. And then you refrain from it because you make a choice in that moment, understanding, well, I know what it costs to do this now. And I don't really want to really pay that price. I'd rather invite forgiveness into my being and not go down either of the two routes. It can be helpful to ask yourself very directly and to contemplate very personally, what is the price that you pay for grudge? Observe it inside of you, make it tangible, feel it. Oh, when I stay with about another person, this is the price I pay. I get agitated in this way. I get tense in this way. I feel my heart closed in this way. I miss the contact with the other in that way. I distance myself in that way. Just watch without huge judgments and I don't know what. Just simply honestly observe yourself and see what it is about. Same with guilt. Okay, I'm holding this guilt. Okay. Right now, I don't feel I can do much about it. But at least I can become aware of what it costs inside of me. What am I paying in order to hold this guilt up? What kind of diminishing of my self-worth, lack of confidence, being reactive to other people, feeling out of control with my emotions, etc., etc. So become very palpably aware of your own ways of paying the bill of grudge and guilt. Of course, from a tantric viewpoint, as I mentioned in the beginning, forgiveness is and remains a universal force, a universal energy, a universal vibration. Accordingly, you can attune yourself with that vibration. Once you become aware of all of these different steps, it is your choice, if you wish, to tune into the resonance of forgiveness, to invite forgiveness actively into your being. Even saying a certain inner formula, an affirmation to yourself. At here and now, I really wish to forgive this person. I will now implore forgiveness inside of me, and I will fully forgive them. A trick is you can start by forgiving someone or yourself for a split second. Okay, for a second I forgive, and then I go back to being utterly full of grudge and full of guilt. But for a split second, I will forgive. Maybe then for a second, maybe then for 2 seconds. Gradually you make space for that resonance to enter your being. What in general helps is to be very patient with yourself. Time heals all wounds, it is said. Definitely time helps. What I've observed is, yes, but not only. Most people do need a bit of a help. You might have noticed maybe in your circle of friends that people, they are not necessarily now super grudgeful and hateful towards the relationship that ended 15 years ago. But their attitude inside is not the attitude, the universal attitude of completely clean situation. I'm meeting this person anew. But the attitude is usually, that relationship, they didn't really understand me. It was a bit like that. Well, God bless them, whatever. But it is not an attitude of, I see this person as the pure soul that they are in the same way that I saw them when I fell in love with them. Or that friend that, they screwed me over then, all right. I hold nothing against them. This I hear very often in my therapy practice. I hold nothing against them. And even the gesture, even the body language, it's clear you hold everything against them. Yes, it is not as burning. It is not as much on the surface. But it is there. And it is something that you keep paying the bills for, sometimes for 15, for 20 years. So give yourself time, be patient. It helps, definitely helps to let it go a little, to take a bit of space, to be a bit with yourself if it is with another person. Same with guilt, to take some space, to take some time to just be with yourself, to be kind with yourself for a bit, and just, give a bit of a different energy. But then return, and again, consciously look into forgiving, look into overcoming, transforming that guilt, that grudge within your being. Other things that help, as I said, become aware of the boundaries that you have and express them, and become aware of the mistakes from the past that you wish to transform. Note them, express them to yourself. Actually, I have this wish to XYZ, to become more attentive, to be more loving. I really wish for that. What can I do in order to fulfill that wish? I really, have a difficulty dealing with XYZ at the moment. Let me ask the other one if they can help me out. Let me share with them, look, I have this boundary. This is hard for me right now. Can you help me out? And then allow them, the other one, to have compassion, to show you that they want to take care of you. They want to embrace you. They want to meet you with love, which most people that have at least a little bit of a heart will do. And in general, of course, whatever practice helps you to directly invite forgiveness into your being, may that be a prayer to the angels, may that be visualizing forgiveness coming as a bright white light into you, may that be taking a moment, taking a breath, becoming aware of yourself, feeling how naturally you don't wish to hold a grudge, you wish to invite the energy of forgiveness inside. All of these are, of course, wonderful modalities to use. I want to invite you to look very, very actively into the subject of forgiveness. Because it is extremely efficient in its results. When you hit that spot inside of you where forgiveness arises naturally, where grudge and guilt can be alchemized within because you got the point about them, it is such a drastic change inside of the being within that, for that particular subject. Maybe you know this when you tell someone, hey, look, this thing, that was really hard for me, it really pissed me off. And then the other one says, hey, I'm really, really sorry. And you can feel it in their heart. They are sorry. And then you decide, all right, I forgive you. That's it. How immediately the story in your head subsides. The continuous chatter goes away. The heart becomes again more feelable. Love becomes again accessible within your inner world. So I want to encourage you to look very actively in this into this modality of forgiveness, into that universal energy of forgiveness, especially in these times where forgiveness is not necessarily an energy that is very, let's say, abundantly present on our planet right now. The moment we are struggling to understand, okay, what do we do with the current global situation? How can we address this? How can we address that? People have opinions. They start to go at each other. All of these are things that create various wounds within our inner world, and that sort of, as a global energy, becomes then very present for each and every one of us. This might reflect into your relationships, might reflect into your quarantine time, into how you are at home at the moment, into how you're dealing with your loved ones at the moment. It is a resonance that is a bit scarce right now. So I want to invite you also, if you just want to do something good for the planet, bring forgiveness. Send forgiveness out into the world. Bring it into your heart. Let it vibrate from there. Let it be affecting all the people around you. Become a source point, a radiant fountain, a spring of forgiveness, if you will, that then will dramatically also change the overall atmosphere on our planet. So these are my thoughts on forgiveness. If you wish to share some questions, some stories, jokes, whatever you might have. Hey guys, if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content on spirituality, Tantra and more.
And if you want to sign up for our online classes or for our retreats, you can see our website on the description below.